Aloha and welcome to This Is Now. Today is another First Alert weather day, this time with the focus being on Hawaii Island and Maui County. Now, a short time ago, a flash flood warning was issued for the island of Maui, and you're also looking right now at some of the images that we've received from all across the state. We have team coverage of the severe weather, including our Drew Davis, who is standing by. But first, let's go ahead and show you some more of these images. This is some the gas station out of Waianae there. Some heavy rains yesterday and strong winds just blew it apart. We also have a number of outages and closures to tell you about.
Yeah, so the State Department of Education said most public schools on Maui and Molokai are closed today due to flash flooding and road closures. We have a full list of those school closures on our website. Meanwhile, downed trees and flooding have triggered several road closures on Maui. North Kihei Road is shut down between Honoapi'ilani Highway and South Kihei Road. Derry Road westbound is coned off from Haleakala Highway, and South Kihei Road is closed at multiple locations due to flooding. We'll have a full list of those on our website as well.
And joining us right now is our H&N First Alert meteorologist, Drew Davis. Drew, first off, before we get to the rare tornado warning for the island of Molokai, let's talk about the forecast and what we're seeing right now. Drew?
Hey Dylan, we had a very busy day in weather yesterday, and that is going to continue as we go forward throughout the rest of this evening. We currently have flood watches up for parts of Maui County and the Big Island. Those continue until 6 p.m. this evening, and flooding is still possible. I'll give you a look at the First Alert radar and satellite coming up here in just a little bit, but I also want to talk about the gusty winds. We've got gusty Kona winds coming in from the southwest, 15 to 30 mile per hour, with some strong wind gusts still possible. We'll also take a look at the surf forecast because we have rising surf due to the cold front, and we're not out of the woods just yet. We've got another cold front coming in by the time we get to this upcoming Thursday, but it is looking to be much weaker than the one that we saw yesterday and over the eastern parts of the state that we're seeing right now. Here's our flood map. You can see we've got still several flood warnings and watches. The red color that you see on Maui, that's the flash flood warning. That continues until 2:15 p.m. this evening, and the green color are the flood watches. So we're still tracking Maui County and the Big Island. Our First Alert radar and satellite, very, very busy still, but mostly over the eastern parts of the state. I want to take you island by island so you can see exactly what's going on. On Kauai, mostly dry. That's true for Oahu as well. Some moisture moving in from the west, but some lingering showers are what we're expecting as this cold front continues to move across the state. Here's the gathering place. Some moisture moving in towards the leeward part of the island, but relatively dry compared to a little bit further eastward. Molokai and Lanai seeing similar conditions to what Oahu and Kauai are seeing, but we have a flash flood warning up for the southeastern parts of Maui, and you notice most of the rainfall is moving off to the east. The heaviest rainfall as we're going forward throughout the rest of this afternoon and evening is going to be for the Big Island. You see a lot of green, a lot of yellow, a lot of orange there. Heavy rainfall is possible, and we even saw some severe thunderstorm warnings earlier this afternoon that were indicating on radar the potential for 40 to 50 mile per hour winds and 3/4 inch hail. So very, very heavy rainfall. Again, all of this is happening because of a cold front moving across the state and a low pressure system. These low pressure systems, typically they form way high up north in the northern Pacific. This one is very far south, so we're seeing a lot of the impacts here in Hawaii. I want to show you our winds outside. Again, these are our wind speeds. We've got gusty Kona winds providing the moisture, providing the instability for the weather here in Hawaii. One of the reasons that we saw the tornado warning, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, is these Kona winds providing the instability in the atmosphere. You can see in Kailua Kona, 21 mile per hour winds out of the south. Yesterday, we were seeing around 30 mile per hour winds out of the south yesterday evening. Our First Alert Futurecast, you can see Tuesday, 10 p.m. as we're going into this evening. This is a higher resolution model, so you can see a little bit better than what we can see further down in the forecast. Thunderstorms off to our northeast are still possible, and then we're going to continue to be tracking this as we go forward. Another front is on the way by the time we get to Thursday. You can see that off to our northwest. We're going to keep updates on it. Doesn't look like we're going to issue another First Alert weather day. Each model run that we've been doing that we've been tracking has been showing less and less intensity for the second front coming in.
Drew Davis, thank you so much for that. Let's also talk about that tornado warning for the island of Molokai. There was a lot of questions about that, if a tornado actually touched down or not. Tell us, what do you know?
So yesterday, the tornado warning, often when you see Hawaii tornado, those words often don't go together. The last tornado warning that we had was for Kauai on March 17th of 2020. So a little under 4 years ago now. They are uncommon here to have those tornado warnings. Typically, we'll have water spouts that move on land. Last night, what happened in Molokai, on the radar around 7:15 p.m., the National Weather Service saw that there was enough circulation in the atmosphere, at least in the velocity scan that we were seeing. They decided it was enough to issue a tornado warning. It was very short-lived, 7:15 p.m., and they canceled it very, very quickly after it was issued. However, it causes a lot of panic. Tornado warning, you see, that's not something that we get here in Hawaii. It's panic-inducing is for Maui County. We got a lot of calls here in the news center. The reason it happened is because we had southerly winds at the surface, and we had very strong northwesterly winds high up in the atmosphere. And that caused circulation in the vertical, and it eventually got turned to where it was rotating over Molokai. There was enough circulation, again, that the National Weather Service thought it warranted a tornado warning. They have very strict guidelines and training for issuing severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings. So we were tracking that throughout the evening. And of course, we've seen severe thunderstorm warnings as well. Today, so the instability is present in the atmosphere to support the upward motion for tornadoes, support the circulation for tornadoes. I'm not expecting any more tornado warnings as we go forward throughout the rest of today or even the rest of this week. Yesterday, it was a very, very unstable atmosphere. But yes, we had the tornado warning yesterday because of the ingredients. The ingredients were present.
Our H&N meteorologist, Drew Davis, thank you so much for your insight on this. Another thing that a lot of people were talking about, Ashley, is those rolling blackouts. HECO says they don't anticipate any more today, but here's a recap of what happened last night.
Thousands of residents were in the dark last night during the planned outages HECO put in place to conserve power. In Punchbowl by Vineyard Boulevard, residents left their pitch-black apartments and walked the streets with flashlights. For the most part, the blackouts lasted at most 30 minutes, but some places had it worse. HECO says 2 generating units at the Waiau power plant went offline yesterday afternoon, and with the cloud cover, there was not enough solar storage reserves.
And be sure to stick with Hawaii News Now on this first alert weather day for parts of the state. You can send your weather pictures and videos to us. Simply use the QR code on your screen. For more details, head over to our website, hawaiinewsnow.com.
Former President Donald Trump appeared in a D.C. courthouse today. A federal appeals court heard arguments about whether he should be immune from prosecution on charges that he plotted to overturn the 2020 election results. Skylar Henry has more from Washington.
We think we had a very good day today.
Former President Donald Trump seemed to be feeling optimistic following a more than 1 hour long hearing into whether he's immune from criminal prosecution for the events leading up to January 6th. Trump's attorneys are trying to make the case that presidents cannot be prosecuted for actions taken while they're in office.
If a president has to look over his shoulder or her shoulder every time he or she has to make a controversial decision and worry, after I leave office, am I going to jail for this? When my political opponents take power, that inevitably dampens the ability of the president.
His attorneys also say the only time a president can be prosecuted is if Congress first impeaches and convicts him or her, an assertion that the government called scary.
If, as I understood my friend on the other side to say here, a president orders his SEAL team to assassinate a political rival and resigns, for example, before an impeachment, not a criminal act.
The 3 appellate judges hearing the case seem to agree.
I think it's paradoxical to say that his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed allows him to violate criminal laws.
The D.C. Court of Appeals is not expected to issue its ruling today, though it may very well be a quick decision, as Trump's January 6th case is scheduled for early March, right in the middle of primary election season.
Trump says the criminal cases are political attacks to keep him out of the White House.
I think it's very unfair when a political opponent, is prosecuted by the DOJ, by Biden's DOJ.
The case could eventually make it to the Supreme Court, but that may not happen until after this year's presidential election. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Well, there was a massive explosion at a Fort Worth, Texas hotel that injured nearly 24 people. And this morning, federal authorities are investigating what they believe was a gas explosion. God Venegas is there with the very latest.
The streets of Fort Worth covered in clouds of dust and debris following a massive explosion that blew out the windows in this downtown hotel.
Something just blew up outside my office. Oh my God.
The blast felt from far away.
It shook the building and everything.
Victims escaping the rubble with the help of first responders.
Right after the going outside, I saw like bloody faces and whatnot, and really seeing the impact of what happened.
Officials say at least 21 were injured by the blast at the Sandman Hotel, 14 of them taken to area hospitals for treatment.
I felt it throughout the car, like it felt like a thunderstorm or something like that. The Sandman Hotel right next to the garage where we park our cars, it's like everything's just like blowing up, people coming out of the building.
Authorities are investigating whether a gas leak could be to blame. One official acknowledging the smell of gas in the air as they spoke to reporters.
And so, again, we have not made 100% determination, but we wanted to make it clear that this was some type of gas explosion.
Fire officials say 26 of the rooms were occupied in the hotel that was recently renovated. The rubble caused by the blast trapping some inside. This woman rescued more than 2 hours after the explosion. Local authorities say they're being assisted by the FBI and ATF as cleanup efforts continued overnight after a chaotic day in downtown Fort Worth.
Back here in Hawaii, the family of the man killed after being bit by a shark at Maui's Paia Bay is seeking help from the community. 39-year-old Jay Carter died last week. He's described as someone who loved the outdoors and was a skilled carpenter. A GoFundMe account has been set up to cover his funeral expenses. If you'd like to contribute, you can find a link at our website or mobile app. One of the biggest organized crime trials in Hawaii is underway in federal court. The so-called Misy enterprise is far different today than when prosecutors first charged businessman Michael Misy and about a dozen others for alleged murder for hire plot and other schemes. Lynn Kawano shows us who's left and why this case could take up half the year.
There are hundreds of potential witnesses identified, more than 750 who could possibly take the stand. A lot has happened with the case against Michael Misy and his co-defendants since the high-profile arrest of the businessman at his Kailua home in July 2020. The suspected organized crime leader and his alleged associates were taken into custody in simultaneous raids. More than 3 years later, both sides are ready for trial, which is expected to be one of the longest and seediest in Hawaii history, with sordid accusations of murder, chemical weapons attacks, kidnapping, and more.
I am surprised that it's expected to last 6 months. Lawyers always give the most extreme estimate because the court needs to know and plan in case. But my experience with cases like this, it probably will last 4 months or less.
Of the original group of defendants, nearly all have pleaded guilty to some charges and agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. Only 3 defendants remain: Misy, his half-brother John Stansel, and daughter-in-law Delia Misy. Delia married Misy's son, who died in 2016 as a result of a car crash. All are charged with conspiracy to participate in a racketeering enterprise. Misy and Stansel have additional charges that include murder for hire, conspiracy to use a chemical weapon, gun crimes, drug crimes, and robbery. In addition, Misy also has kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and more for an alleged plot to torture and murder a man who was involved in that fatal car crash that killed Misy's son.
When you indict a number of people in a conspiracy, many of them will flip and plead guilty. And that's exactly what's happened in this case. Many of the people who pled guilty signed a cooperation agreement with the government in exchange for a more lenient sentence. So that I do expect many of them to be testifying in the trial.
Thousands of potential jurors were sent questionnaires in an attempt to get several dozen impartial people. They will be individually questioned by attorneys on both sides to narrow down the field to 12 plus alternates. Jurors could come from neighbor islands. It would be a commitment given the expected timeline.
In federal court, we draw from all the islands, not just Oahu. But from my experience in Hawaii, you're going to be able to pick a jury. There are enough people who don't follow along with the news or don't know what's really happening in downtown Honolulu with someone like Misy.
Jury selection alone could take about 2 weeks. Opening statements would follow a few days later. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
Prison officials say a Hilo inmate swallowed condoms full of drugs before getting locked up. And now we've learned those drugs ultimately led to that deadly overdose of his cellmate. Isaiah Shields pled not guilty to multiple drug and contraband charges Monday via webcam at his initial court appearance. The Department of Law Enforcement says an X-ray after his arrest last month showed a condom full of drugs in his body. Although that was removed, officials say more was left and he was able to smuggle that into the Hawaii Community Correctional Center. Days later, Shields' cellmate, 56-year-old Steve Delgado, OD'd on fentanyl.
I believe that the cell block should have been searched at the courthouse before they came. When they came to us after the first incident, then we discovered a white powdery substance in the van. The van was supposed to be searched before every transport and immediately after the transport.
After Delgado's death, Shields was searched again, where he threw up more packets of drugs. His girlfriend, Mariah Gillette, was also searched and was found hiding a condom filled with fentanyl.
On Molokai yesterday, an unwelcome surprise in a shipping container. A 20-inch gopher snake was found in a shipping container that came from California that arrived at a Kaunakakai hardware store. Now, police used a pellet gun to kill the non-venomous reptile. Agriculture inspectors searched the store's warehouse along with 3 other Molokai hardware stores, and thankfully they did not find any evidence of other snakes. Well, supporters of 2 recently fired Damien football coaches are making their grievances public. The coaches were removed on suspicion of financial irregularities, and the school says the action was needed to protect its integrity. Our Kyle Chinen has more on this story.
Parents and former players are outside of Damien Memorial School today in support of head coach Anthony Tuitele, who was let go last week from the Monarchs football program by the administration. Parents of Monarch football players organized sign-waving sessions this morning and afternoon after word got out that intermediate coach Ron Damasio and varsity coach Tuitele were let go from the program last Friday. Sources tell Hawaii News Now that it was due to alleged financial misconduct.
We as parents, we want to make sure that there is transparency, that there is a due process of some sort, because we feel like this came out of left field.
The move was initially shocking after both the intermediate and varsity squads captured ILH championships, and Coach Tuitele was named ILH Coach of the Year for the 2nd straight season. In a statement, Damien Memorial President Arnold La'anui says in part, last month we received a report of alleged misconduct by individuals associated with the football team, the nature of which required the immediate investigation by our administration. After interviewing those involved and consultation with legal counsel, disciplinary action was taken and staff members were removed from their positions. The statement didn't describe the allegations but said the alleged misconduct did not harm any student. But the parents and alumni are not satisfied and are looking to get the coaches reinstated.
Because our goal is to have coach reinstated, but not just reinstated, but to have full vindication for these allegations that has been, accused of.
Hawaii News Now reached the coaches, but they said they could not comment at this time. Reporting in Kalihi, Kyle Chinen, Hawaii News Now.
Coming up on Spotlight Now, we focus on education, catching up with Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke as she discusses the early learning program.
That's right, and she'll be followed by Superintendent Keith Hayashi to talk about the challenges at the Department of Education and his leadership heading into the new year. Join us for Spotlight Now on K5.
Spotlight Now coming up right after this. Let's send you live outside now for one more look at Hilo Bay. You can see the heavy rain coming down. We'll have more news coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
American Red Cross. The organization that supplies about 40% of the nation's blood has declared an emergency shortage. Mandy Gaither has more on how you can help.
A state of emergency. The American Red Cross says blood supplies are critically low across the U.S.
We don't particularly like declaring emergencies. We're only doing it because the need is that great.
The organization's medical director says an additional 8,000 blood donations are needed each week in January to keep up with hospital demand.
Without an increase in blood donation over the next couple of weeks, there won't be enough blood in hospital blood banks in order to allow doctors to respond to emergencies.
Low blood supplies impact surgeries and people with chronic diseases like sickle cell and cancer who require blood and platelet transfusions. The Red Cross says the number of people donating blood in the U.S. has fallen by about 40% over the last 2 decades. And winter weather and respiratory viruses could impact donor turnout in the weeks ahead, making the current shortage even worse. While all blood types are urgently needed, the Red Cross says they're especially in need of platelets and blood from Group O donors.
There's no way to get blood from anywhere besides a donor's arm, and that blood that you donate could be used to save the life of somebody who's been in a car accident. It could be used to help save a newborn baby, or it could be used to help get a cancer patient through their treatment.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Anyone interested in donating blood can make an appointment by visiting redcrossblood.org or by calling 1-800-RED-CROSS.
Now to a new recall. Some Ford Focus owners should consider making an appointment with their dealers. The automaker is recalling nearly 140,000 cars because of a safety-related concern. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Ford Focuses from 2016 through 2018 have faulty oil pump drive belts. Officials say this problem can cause a loss of oil pressure, increasing the chances of an engine stall or loss of power braking. The recall also applies to Ford EcoSports from 2018 through 2022. Owners of affected vehicles will be contacted and the problems will be repaired at no cost. More information is available at NHTSA's website. All right, so we are going to recap some of the weather that we have been experiencing. Let's take you live outside one more time now. This is a live camera out at Hilo Bay. The rain coming down is not as intense as it was at the start of the show, so things are slowly clearing up. But again, the front has been moving rather quickly through the islands. What we've been seeing so far has been intense periods of heavy rain, but they've been kind of clearing up rather quickly. Ashley, if you could also recap some of the closures in Maui County, what do we have?
Sure. So the State Department of Education said most public schools on Maui and Molokai are closed today because of the threat of flash flooding, and there are also some road closures. So we have a list of those school closures on our websites. Some of the road closures to tell you about: North Kihei Road is shut down between Honoapi'ilani Highway and South Kihei Road. Dairy Road westbound is coned off from Haleakala Highway, and South Kihei Road is closed at multiple locations due to flooding. Again, you can find all the closure information on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com.
And once again, that flash flood warning that is currently up for the island of Maui is set to last until 2:15 p.m. So if you are in low-lying areas, be sure to be vigilant, be prepared to evacuate if needed, because as we've been seeing, these floods have been popping up anywhere that is low-lying, including this image from Koa Ridge here on Oahu. This is what it looks like right here on Oahu. A sunny day. It seems that our side of the state is in the clear for now. Thank you all so much for watching.